Hi everybody. Camera hasn't came in the mail yet, so I can't do a video through my computer. I'm just going to use my phone for now. I'm going to be leaving pretty soon. I'm going to a group meetup, so not going to spend too much time on this. But if you guys haven't heard, Sargon of Akkad, right? He has finally, we've been waiting, he has finally released his list of ideas, right? We're finally, for the first time, we're going to understand what a group of individualists really want, right? This is history. This is making history right now. Where he is treading water that no man has tread before. This is truly a time to be alive. So I want to go through this. You guys are going to love it. I think it's really interesting. I'm just kind of gonna read it. I really honestly just printed this out and looked at this like a few minutes ago. I did not take a bunch of time to think about this or write anything out. So don't judge my lukewarm criticism too much. This isn't going to be a super thought out video, but enjoy anyway. So first off on this list that was drafted by individualists is individual rights. So that should be no surprise. So basically it says all political rights must be universally shared by all adult citizens, enforced by a state that is accountable to the people. Groups may not have rights. I don't understand, like, does he not think that the state government is a group? I don't, like, yeah, so anyway, he's basically saying that everybody has to have the same right. Everybody has equal rights. Doesn't matter. Obviously, he doesn't believe in race, so it doesn't matter if you are Hispanic, Asian, Black, Puerto Rican, whoever. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, what your identity is. You should have the same rights as everybody else, and it should be enforced by a group. And then the groups may not have rights. I just don't understand the whole groups may not have rights. I don't. Why? It just doesn't make any sense. Maybe we'll come back to it. So it also says each person's rights must remain sacrosanct. This is the primary protection of all people in society. Must enjoy to ensure justice, and there can be no extra legal justification to violate an individual's rights. So, I mean that's pretty much saying that the government cannot go after a specific group of people, basically, and I don't think that's a smart policy, because I mean, if you have individuals in a society, we have individuals like that now who are undermining our society and our culture, and if the state were to actually take action against them, or would have taken action against them 50 years ago, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. But nobody took action, and now they have lots of power. So I mean, he's automatically assuming that there's not going to be groups of people who are going to want to undermine your society. I mean, it is almost a pacifistic utopia, because I mean, that's how nations like function or come about, is a group of people decide that they want to live in a specific area. They decide that they want to adhere to a specific type of laws, and then there's other countries and that are next to it or neighboring it or whatever, and obviously there's trade in between these countries, and the countries compete. It's natural for countries to compete against each other. We have lots of countries that compete against the United States. That's why many countries are supporting immigration into the U.S., because they know that if they send these people to the United States, that it is going to undermine, that there is going to be a group of people that are going to come here, they're going to push their values, and they're going to create a country that they want to live in, and they're going to change the world or the country that we established from our identity, right? And so as a country, I think they call it the Department of Homeland Security, their job is to make sure that other countries that are competing, and again, all countries are competing against each other, their job is to make sure that people from other countries are not allowed to come in here and push their rights, either as individuals or as groups. It doesn't matter. And so what I'm saying here is that there has to be a bias in the government. The government has to be able to pick out what is good and what is not good, or what is detrimental and what is not detrimental, or what is alien and what is not alien, right? You have to. It's no different than, you know, again, this is a simple biological analogy. Like if you have your T cells in your body creates T cells that know what bacteria are good and what bacteria are bad. There's lots of bacteria in your body. It's on your skin, in your gut. It's freaking everywhere, right? But, you know, sometimes in the, you know, in the outside environment, you pick up bacteria that's not safe, that can cause infection, you know, or whatever, inhibit the immune system. And so your T cells recognize that, and, you know, macrophages, and they essentially eat them and kill them, right? They discriminate. They decide what is good and what is bad. And, you know, it just doesn't seem to make any sense. You need, for the health of a country, you have to essentially be biased. You have to determine what is foreign and what is not. Otherwise, eventually there's going to be a big change, and society isn't going to be the same, which, to be honest, is society. You can't have a society of individualists, because individualists they don't create culture. There's no interconnectedness, but whatever. Anyway, moving on. So democracy is the next one. This is groundbreaking stuff, guys. So democracy. It says that all legal adults must be franchised with the right to have a direct method of exerting influence over their government. This is usually a representative democracy, with the state as the servant of the people, dedicated to protecting their property rights and interfering with their lives as little as possible. Right. So basically, anybody is supposed to vote. Everyone is supposed to have this ability to exert influence over the government. And the government is supposed to be like as small as possible, which, you know, and in a country of 314 million people, it's going to be hard to have a representative democracy that's not big. You know, I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, in a democracy, in a heavily populated country, you have to have so many official positions to be able to represent everybody. And in reality, like, truth be told, it's impossible to have a complete representative democracy. It's impossible, unless maybe you were to live in this world where everybody thought the same, but that's not going to happen. And so it's just impossible. There's too many differences within people. And to be fair, there's lots of people that shouldn't have influence. I mean, people are not equal. I mean, somebody who, you know, watches the game, or is an excessive drinker, or is just, you know, overall a vagrant, they should not have the same representation in a democratic system or a political system as somebody who does the studying and does the reading and is active in political theory, right? Like, you know, like, let's say I've obviously read Marx, and obviously I would never vote for somebody like Bernie Sanders or any sort of Marxist socialist policy, right? And however, there's lots of people who haven't even read Marx, and or really know anything about Eastern or European or Russian history, or German history, excuse me, and that they would just vote because the promises sound nice, they sound good. And so there's 10 uneducated people for every one educated person, and they're going to outvote. And so in that case, it's going to be an overall detriment to everybody involved in that political system. That system is going to eventually create bad conditions, like it's doing here in the U.S. And obviously, the worse conditions get, the worse every person's individual life is. So, you know, if you really want to be an individualist and you really want to live a better life, maybe you should consider a fascist government that's a little bit smaller and is able to essentially take ideas from the best of the population and employ them for the betterment of everybody. Right? It may not be fair, and everybody may not get a say, but at the end of the day, everybody's lives will be better with the best people running things. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to be an individualist and you want to improve your standard of living, the best way to go is, you know, to be a collectivist. Food for thought. So economic freedom, right? Property rights begin with self-ownership and extend to any property an individual has legally acquired. The individual must be, as much as possible, in control of their own economic destiny. This includes the right to own property, engage in trade, to sell one's own labor, or to engage in collective economic activities. Right. I don't know why he even wrote this down. Economic freedom, like, the only government that doesn't have economic freedom would be like communism or something. So I don't get it. I mean, we have economic freedom. Nobody in the right, nobody in the alt-right is saying you shouldn't have economic freedom, except unless in the case of like if there's groups or individuals who are making a profit off of dishonorable means, right? So like if there's a company that, you know, a group of bankers or whatever that are racketeering or making a bunch of money off of, you know, what penny stocks, you know, stuff like that. There's a group of people or an individual who is taking advantage of people and being dishonest and making a profit out of it. Like the government should be able to come in and be like, hey, we're not going to allow this. We don't care we care about economic freedom, but we also don't believe in being taken advantage of. So I don't see why he even figured it'd be a good idea to mention this, but hey, maybe I'm just not on that level of intellect that Sargon is, because this guy, man, you can just tell by the way he talks that he has a brain. I mean, I can't even comprehend. I don't even know how he gets up in the morning or is even able to talk to people. I mean, if I had that level of intellect, I would probably just drown everybody out and just sit in a room by myself and listen to myself talk, you know. So God bless his heart. But anyway, moving on. Freedom of speech, right? This is a big one. This is a big idea for the liberalist. Basically, Sargon says all people should enjoy the right to voice political ideas, no matter how controversial, without suffering penalties via state-imposed fines, exclusion from the political system, incarceration, or any other form of punishment. No political idea can ever be considered as incitement, abuse, or harassment in and of itself. No speech should be compelled. See, yeah, again, totally disagree. NAMBLA is one. In a fascist state, people like NAMBLA would never be allowed to organize or speak at all. They wouldn't be taken care of. Or people that came here and like pushed for multiculturalism and immigration, they wouldn't be given a free, you know, an ability to essentially like debate, because history has shown us that when these people come to power and they swindle their way into power and deceive their way into power, they are hard to get rid of, and they end up usually in most cases destroying the country completely. So it never recovers, right? So the point is here that the threat posed by certain aspects of speech is so like communism or multiculturalism is so grave that we have to take actions to stop these people from being able to, you know, amass a following or subversion, which is what they've done, right? Like if like with Martin Luther King Jr., I mean, it's the holidays coming up, right? I hope you guys are all celebrating. But the government should have came in and been like, no, you know, no organization for MLK. And we could have avoided this whole situation. But, you know, the whole free speech thing. And to be honest, I don't think the people that wrote the Constitution, I don't think they cared much about the slaves' freedom of speech. I'll be quite honest. I don't think they really wanted to hear, you know, Mexicans or blacks' opinion on how Europeans run their society. So that's, I don't know, man, something to think about. So moving on, meritocracy. So hey, we agree on this. Meritocracy is good. Read it off for fun if you want to listen. Is people should be judged by the content of their character. Promotion should be on the basis of achievement and should not be unduly inhibited by innate characteristics. Yeah, I think that's great, because we have obviously companies that promote people based on their sex or their disability or their race, right? Like if you're a black disabled woman and you happen to somehow slide by engineering school, you're getting a job, even if you got D's. I mean, just because of your disability, your race or whatever, your gender, you're going to be put above, like someone like me. If I had a 4.0 because I'm a white straight male, I wouldn't get the job, right? So I agree with that. Yeah, I certainly agree with meritocracy. I don't think we're in agreement with that. But again, at the same time, like the alt-right has always promoted meritocracy, so that really doesn't set him apart from us. And that's what he's trying to do. I mean, he doesn't like the alt-right, basically, because he thinks that we're going to suppress his ability to sit on the internet and make fun of SJWs, or whatever he thinks we're going to do. He says nobody is entitled to receive benefits they did not earn or to which they are not already entitled by being a citizen. So, yeah, I mean, give or take. I mean, I think that programs. I mean, if we lived in an ethno state, right, which is something Sargon doesn't like, we would probably use extra money instead of like funding wars or giving cell phones to single mothers. We would probably use that money to essentially incentivize having families. And I guess in that way they kind of earned it. But at the same time, like, right, like what if you have orphans? Like what if you have kids that are born from a completely underprivileged family or orphans? They did nothing to receive benefits. So do you just like let an orphan die? No, of course not. I mean, you have a state, you have a position in government that takes care of that, uses state or tax dollars basically to take care of people like that, or yeah, or that's a part of like what society should entitle us to, like libraries and firefighters and police protection, and obviously like we should protect our youth because not everybody is born in a good situation, and a lot of people are put in situations in their life that maybe they need help, they don't have the ability to overcome. Then there's nothing wrong with that. There's everybody has to have help occasionally. So I don't I think it's a very vague philosophy, just be like, well, if you don't earn it, you don't get it. Right? I think that, I mean, I guarantee you that he is, as a kid, his parents probably gave him stuff for holidays that he didn't earn, or when he was a kid, I'm sure they gave him a crib, but I don't think he was working a job when he was a month old, so it's, and in a broader sense, like the government should act as that caregiver. The government should be like that family figure in a way, ideally, right? And it should take care of people, and it should want to give things. It should want to give things to its own people. So that's just my opinion. That might be a little status to me or whatever, but that's how I think it should be. Sargon obviously hasn't thought this through very much. He just wants to be a weirdo on the internet, to be honest. Blind justice is the next one. So he says, each individual will be governed by the same laws as their peers, whether applicable or not, without exception. Each person will be presumed innocent until proven guilty and guaranteed the right to a fair trial. So, yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, this is kind of coming from a very comfortable idea, but like there's a thing called martial law, and when a country's in war, you don't always have the time for due process, and sometimes trials are extradited. So does they're expedited. Excuse me, they're sped up, right? And so it depends. I mean, blind justice is ideal. Like if you lived like an ethno state, yeah, it would be a blind justice. But if you have just this international like country of individuals, like it oh man, blind justice isn't going to work. Like you can look at the example where oh shoot, I can't even remember where it was, but basically like some white cheerleader got burnt to death by some black. I want to say it was in Chicago, but I don't know. You have to fact check me on that. And the jury, which was mostly black, voted all for him to be guilty, or excuse me, not guilty. And then the whites, there was like six blacks and like 4 or 5 whites or whatever, and all the whites voted guilty and all the blacks voted not guilty. So much for blind justice. I mean, it's just not real. It's not going to happen. Again, unless you created like this society of like just identityless people. And of course, last but not least, atheism, or as he likes to call it, secularism, right? I mean, I don't even need to give a detail on it. I think it's dumb. I'm not a Catholic or anything, but secularism is just here's how I see it, right? People like the Egyptians, those are a good example, or even the Greeks. Both those societies were extremely advanced. Their architecture was impressive. It was way ahead of their time. I mean, look at the tower, or excuse me, the pyramids of Giza. We still cannot really do what they did. We don't even know how they did it. We don't even know how they came up with the trigonometry and the engineering capabilities and the, quite frankly, astronomical understanding to do what they did with these pyramids. The Egyptians, of course, if you were to ask them, if you were to be able to go back in time and ask them, like, how did you guys do it? They would have told you that the knowledge was given to them by the gods, right? Egyptian society was a very religious society, and in a way that it wasn't, it was beneficial. Like, it was the religious society, the religious government they had was productive, and it led to one of the most advanced cultures in the world. And you can see this in Rome and Greece and in many European cultures. The Vikings, like, or Northern Europeans, I should say, Scandinavians, whatever, they, you know, they had a very religious society, and it was a big part of their culture. And you take away religion, you take a big chunk of the soul and lifeblood of your country. So I'm not really a big fan of secularism. I understand that many of the founding fathers were coming from, like, an Enlightenment sort of philosophy where Christianity in Europe had become, or had been, extremely suppressive for like 800, 900 years. Like, I understand that. And so it was right for the time, but now, like, you know, and you also have to remember that at that time when the founding fathers were about, not much was really known about a lot of these societies as well. Like these ancient societies like Northern Europeans and Egyptians, not as much as we know today. And I'm pretty sure they would have considered this. But yeah, the reason they picked a secular government in the United States is because, yes, the church in Europe was extremely oppressive, and it was rich, and it wasn't a good influence. I can't deny that. But at the same time, I don't think that secularism is this, like, golden standard that should be how this enlightened futuristic society of individuals should go by. I just don't think it's going to get anywhere. So yeah, I think Sargon is an interesting fellow. I'm kind of glad that the skeptics are finally acknowledging us publicly, because once they do that, they're going to be embarrassed. Very simple, because they have a bigger reach than us, but they don't have as strong of ideas as ours. Like, we will outcompete them in the market of ideas. And so the more we debate them and the more we discuss their flawed and superficial ideas, the more their audience is going to see our side of things and come to us, because we'll naturally win them over. So I'm glad he's making the liberalist society of individuals. So yeah, I thought that would be fun. I thought it would be fun to share. I'll post. I'll be having more videos. They're going to be professionally made soon, not with my my phone. I'll have a mic and a camera, and I'll probably, like, you know, think them out a little bit more instead of just like recording myself just rambling about stuff. So yeah, man, I'm trying to work on my social media stuff. So if you can, help me out, man. Like, my Twitter has been banned so many times, my Facebook is banned so many times. Help me out, like, subscribe, like, man, appreciate it. I'm putting my face out there. I am extremely hated in my local area, so I greatly appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video.